In the beginning of the movie, we are told that witches are real and can be anyone, your neighbors, your nurse, or even a car driver. They hate children and are always plotting to kill them. The story then shifts to Hero Boy, a young child in the final month of 1968. One day, while traveling with his parents, they tragically die in a car accident. After the accident, Hero Boy's grandmother takes him in and brings him to her home. He is heartbroken and unable to get over the loss of his parents. He constantly thinks about them and struggles with his sadness. In an effort to comfort him, his grandmother tells him a poignant story. She shows him a photo of her late mother, his great-grandmother, and says, "She was my daughter, and I would have done anything for her. But now she is gone. Life is tough, and we all must learn to accept that." Despite her best efforts, Hero Boy continues to mourn. But when his grandmother gives him a small pet mouse to care for, Hero Boy names it Daisy and begins to feel a little happier, enjoying his time with his new companion. One night, while Hero Boy and his grandmother are dancing in the living room, they notice a witch lurking outside their house. The next day, Hero Boy's grandmother falls ill, coughing badly. Later, they go to the grocery store. While his grandmother is distracted, Hero Boy goes to pick up a nail. At that moment, a witch approaches him and offers him a piece of candy. In her hand, she holds a snake that slithers toward Hero Boy. The witch asks him to kiss the snake, trying to hypnotize him. Just as things get dangerous, his grandmother rushes to the rescue, and the witch vanishes. However, Hero Boy's grandmother is clearly affected by the encounter, and her condition worsens. Terrified by the witch's appearance, Hero Boy insists they go home immediately. When they return, he tells his grandmother about the woman who gave him the candy. His grandmother reacts with fear, explaining that the woman wasn't just a regular person, she was a witch. She then shares a story from her own childhood about her best friend Alice. They grew up together, but one day Alice was tricked into eating a witch's candy. When Hero Boy's grandmother saw Alice that night, she was relieved to find her alive and well. But the next morning, Alice slowly transformed into a chicken. Alice's parents were horrified and questioned her about the strange transformation. Her grandmother tells Hero Boy that the hen is actually Alice, but no one believes her. Desperate, she takes him to a room filled with ancient Ayurvedic books on medicine and healing. She throws some stones onto the ground, as if seeking a sign, and then insists that they must leave immediately. They quickly pack up, and her grandmother calls a contact for help. This contact is a former executive chef at a hotel with over 30 years of experience, who is now an ally in their fight. As they leave the house, the grandmother explains that all witches answer to the Grand High Witch, who is the ruler of them all. This powerful figure controls all the witches, and they follow her orders without question. Hero Boy's grandmother warns him that witches are everywhere, even in places where you wouldn't expect them. At this point, the narrative takes an unexpected turn. Hero Boy and his grandmother arrive at a hotel, where they meet a boy named Bruno. Bruno loves candy more than anything else. The hotel manager shows them to their room. However, things take a turn for the worse when Hero Boy notices a group of witches entering the hotel. They are gathered with the Grand High Witch, the most powerful witch of them all. Hero Boy becomes terrified as he begins to understand who they really are. He describes them to his grandmother. Their faces are grotesquely torn, and they wear gloves to hide their real hands, which are not hands at all, but wings. Their feet have no toes, and they have no hair on their heads. The most disturbing feature of all is their massive nostrils, which they use to smell children. The next morning, Hero Boy takes his mouse, Daisy, into a large hall to practice. As he opens the cage to let her out, Bruno suddenly appears, eating chocolate, completely oblivious to the danger around him. The boy tells Bruno that a woman has asked him to meet her here at 12:25 p.m., promising to give him 6 packets of Swiss chocolate. Soon after, Bruno's mother arrives and takes him away. The boy then sneaks into a hall and starts tying a rope to the staircase. As he's working, several witches enter the room with the hotel manager. Once the manager leaves, the Grand High Witch locks the door. She commands the witches to remove their shoes, gloves, wigs, and other disguises. The witches comply, revealing their true forms. Their feet are deformed, their hands are claw-like, and they are completely bald with strange markings on their heads. The boy, hiding and watching all this, is terrified. The Grand High Witch addresses the witches and announces her plan to turn all the children in the world into rats and have them exterminated. She reveals that she will open candy stores in various cities, using them to distribute candy laced with a special formula. She explains that this formula, made with 3 bones, will transform any child into a rat. To demonstrate, she reveals that she has already tested the formula on a boy, who is set to arrive at 12:25 p.m. She lured him with the promise of Swiss chocolate. While explaining her plan, one of the witches smells the scent of a child in the room and starts searching under the table. She flips the table but finds no one. Suspicious, she begins moving toward the tunnel in the room. Just then, Bruno enters, demanding the chocolate he was promised. As the clock strikes 12:25 p.m., Bruno transforms into a mouse in front of all the witches. The witches cheer with excitement and try to stomp on him. The boy, still hidden, decides he must help Bruno. Suddenly, his pet mouse, Daisy, speaks to him, leaving him astonished. Daisy encourages him to act, reminding him of the formula the Grand High Witch added to Bruno's chocolate. The Grand High Witch soon senses another presence in the room and discovers the boy. The witches grab him and force him to drink the formula. When he refuses, they pour it into his ear, and he transforms into a mouse as well. The boy, now a mouse, tries to escape, but the Grand High Witch grabs his tail. The other witches urge her to crush him with a hammer, but Daisy intervenes, biting the Grand High Witch to free him. The boy, Bruno, now a mouse, and Daisy escape through a small tunnel. The Grand High Witch attempts to grab them but gets her hand stuck in a fan, injuring herself. Crying out in pain, she can't follow them. The 3 mice make their way to the boy's grandmother's room. The boy explains everything to his grandmother, revealing his identity and recounting what happened in the hall. Daisy, who was once human and turned into a rat by a witch, reveals her real name is Mary. The hero boy tells his grandmother that the Grand High Witch's room is directly below theirs, and suggests stealing her formula to reverse their transformations. The grandmother helps him descend to the witch's balcony using a woolen rope. He successfully steals the formula but nearly falls while returning, grabbing onto socks to save himself. The grandmother covers for him, pretending it was an accident. Later, the boy learns the formula is only effective for turning humans into animals, not reversing the process. Both he and his grandmother are heartbroken, but he reassures her that it's okay. He asks if they can continue living with her as rats, and she happily agrees. Daisy suggests using the formula to stop the witches by mixing it into their soup. Though dangerous, the boy agrees and sneaks into the kitchen, where he carefully adds the formula to the soup meant for the witches. During the witches' banquet, the Grand High Witch recognizes the grandmother as someone connected to Alice, the girl she once turned into a hen. Before she can act, the witches begin transforming into rats after consuming the soup, causing chaos in the hotel. Bruno, Daisy, and the hero boy, still in the form of mice, manage to steal the keys to the Grand High Witch's room and inform the grandmother. The hotel is in utter turmoil as the witches-turned-rats scurry about, terrifying everyone. In the end, the Grand High Witch finds the remaining formula in her room, but her plan to create more rats is thwarted. Meanwhile, a bottle of the formula falls, and Bruno, Daisy, and the hero boy go to retrieve it. The Grand High Witch appears, terrifying them. The grandmother gathers the formula while pretending to remain calm, although she is scared. The witch realizes she didn't drink the soup and angrily advances toward her with her long, dangerous hands. Bruno, Daisy, and Hero Boy trap the witch using a rat trap, and Hero Boy forces the entire formula into her mouth, turning her into a rat. The rat witch attacks them, trapping Bruno in the rat trap, but the grandmother locks her in a glass jar and stacks books on top to keep her contained. Hero Boy retrieves the key to the witch's safe, which contains money and a diary with the addresses of all the witches in the world. Overjoyed by this discovery, they realize they can eliminate all witches. The grandmother, carrying Bruno, Daisy, and Hero Boy in a bag, frees the witch's cat. The cat attacks the glass jar, killing the rat witch. As they leave the hotel, the grandmother distributes money to the staff. Bruno's mother refuses to take him back, so the grandmother brings him home. Despite being mice, the trio is happy and enjoys their new life. The hero boy asks how long they will live as mice, and the grandmother assures him that being human mice, they will live longer than regular mice. They dance joyfully, and the story ends on a happy